Hey there, it's Jason. Welcome to the Jason Wright Show, where the mission is very simple. It is to improve always in all ways. Look, I am on a mission to create the absolute best version of myself. And through the Jason Wright Show, I let you know everything I'm doing to make that happen. I interview incredible, remarkable, brilliant individuals from all different walks of life. And I also try to bring you tools, tactics, and protocols that will help you in your own personal mission to improve always in all ways. Now, let's get started. We're already all right. So look, I just push record because this is good. This is good banter. I love it, Jesse. So all right. So tell me. I do show up today, and every time I talk to you, I notice you've got a jersey in the background there, a basketball jersey, and then there has been one added. And tell us what you have added to your jersey collection.
Well, Jason, So I did not own a single piece of sports memorabilia until last year. I've lived over the last 20 years between Los Angeles, New York City, back to Los Angeles. And like so many people who have infiltrated the state of Texas from the West, I am one of those people. I'm sorry. I'll just go ahead and say, I'm sorry. I know we're responsible for pricing of houses going through the roof, what have you. But I promise I came with good intentions, came to raise a family. We got this nice big house instead of living in townhouses and apartments like in New York City when we lived in a 700 square foot box that cost $4,000 a month because you're living in the heart of the city. Now we have a 4,000 square foot home that our mortgage is what our rent was for that little place here in Houston, right? It's amazing. So I was like, I want cool stuff for my office. And it all started on the right-hand side over here. You can't see it, but there's a famous piece of sports history when Robin Ventura charged Nolan Ryan on the mound.
I was watching that game, dude. Absolutely.
So my first week in Texas, I was at an event. I work in insurance. It was an insurance industry event. And they had a silent auction. And I looked at the crowd and I was like, I don't think anyone's going to wager on this picture. And it's literally the picture, Nolan Ryan, Robin Ventura, and it's signed, "Don't mess with Texas, Nolan Ryan."
Love it.
And I was like, what better way to break in homage to Texas in my office than Nolan Ryan getting Robin Ventura. And the only time anyone got 7 hits off of Nolan Ryan, right?
That is beautiful. Can I just tell you something funny real quick about that? That's so genius on your part. Okay. So whenever I moved to Tyler from Houston, I grew up in Sulphur Springs. And so I'm an East Texan. I'm a 5th generation East Texan. But whenever I first moved back to East Texas to a smaller town, I'd go to church and stuff and people would be like, "Where are you from?" And I would say, "Well, I moved here from Houston, but I'm from Sulphur Springs. I'm one of you. I'm not one of those big cities."
One of you.
So because I know the poster, it's literally, it's Nolan on the mound. He's holding Ventura like this. And you see, he's about to beat him. And that was so freaking awesome, which is crazy for me because I grew up whenever Ventura was at OSU and everyone started trying to hit like the OSU guys because they were masters. They held this hitting camp. And so I'd always loved Ventura up until that point. And when you mess with Texas and when you mess with Nolan, that's a no-go. But much like me, making sure that all these East Texans knew that I had East Texas bona fides, you show a Texan that picture and you're like, all right, you may be from the West Coast, but I think you're a good refugee. I think you're one of the refugees that we can deal with. I love it, man.
I didn't bring politics with me. I didn't bring, a snobbiness with me. I do like a good cab from time to time, but we'll leave that here or there. So anyways, big Lakers fan. So I got Shaq behind me, got Magic behind me. Those were the next 2 pieces of memorabilia I got. And literally last week, I got a pretty bummer text. And that text was Bobby Knight had passed away. And before spending my years in LA and New York, I was raised in Indiana. So, and I'd been sitting on actually inside of an order. I was sitting on a red chair that was signed by Bobby and this jersey that was signed by Bobby. Well, Jason, we're of the age. We know Bobby Knight throwing the red chairs, the character, the leadership. But then I realized I'm 43 and anybody under probably 35, they're going to need an explanation for why I have a signed red chair by some guy they have no idea who it is.
Right.
This, however, reads 3 national championships, 5 appearances, 11 Big Tens. It's easy to understand. And I got it for a very, very reasonable price. In fact, when I tell people I'll tell you, I got it for $200.
Oh my God.
Like, very reasonable.
Yeah.
And literally, this was like 10 minutes after he passed away. I hit order, got online yesterday. It was already selling for $500.
There you go.
You know what this means? I can tell my wife my jersey collection is an investment.
There you go. Absolutely. Very well done, sir. And we had Bobby Knight in Texas for a little while. I mean, look, Texas Tech is not afraid to bring in some characters. To have Mike Leach, and then you had Bobby Knight. And I remember growing up, man. I was never a big basketball fan until the Final Four, I'd start watching around the Sweet 16. That's whenever my buddies and I, we would start. They liked it more than me, but that's whenever I would get involved in those magical Duke years. Those late 80s, early 90s kind of. That's when I would.
Yeah, Christian Laettner.
Oh yes.
Hill. Those were some great years.
Have you seen that documentary? Everybody Hates Christian Laettner.
Of course.
So good. It's so good. And I had forgotten about Christian Laettner until I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that name. And
he was so big in college ball for a minute.
And Bobby Hurley, all those guys. It was so good. But anyway, so yes, I grew up with, just knowing. And then of course, when you're like you and I, that's kind of what we'll touch on in this conversation. It's just being self-improvement junkies. You read about all the leaders and you're going to come across Bobby Knight. And granted, he's used like, Carol Dweck actually used him as kind of the fixed mindset example in Mindsets, which I kind of get it. I mean, Bobby Knight, he did what his team reflected on him. I mean, he was big on that. But dude, he was a legendary.
He wanted to make a great team with great players. And in fact, Michael Jordan talks about this in his biography because Jordan played for him in the '84 Olympic team.
Right.
And Jordan came on board and he was willing to fall into Knight's system because he knew that Knight just demanded perfection and wanted the team to win.
Yep.
And a player like Jordan, I mean, he wasn't the greatest in 1984. He was drafted 3rd pick, right? Coming out of North Carolina. In high school, his sophomore year, he didn't make varsity, the GOAT. Right. Greatest of all time. We got stories like this for today. Tom Brady, getting drafted 6th round, et cetera. It can be easy to miss these guys. But someone who knew he was as great as he was willing to fall into a system, because Dean Smith from North Carolina wasn't all too different from Bobby Knight.
Right.
And dropping your ego. What do they say? Ego's no amigo. And the second you can drop that ego and move forward, that's why the greats become the greats. There's, something great about it. I mean, even like with what Magic was able to do with those Lakers years and falling in the way that he fell, leadership under Pat Riley. But there's just something about great leaders who can make great players, that can make great teams, that can lead to championships. It's a repeatable and duplicatable form.
And I love and it can be done in so many different ways. Like, you have Phil Jackson who did it his way. One of my favorite examples of leadership, man, that coming from, where you moved in from, John Wooden, dude. I love reading about Coach Wooden.
Who is also a Hoosier.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And, it's cool. So by the way, I don't think it was my most recent episode, but Mitchell Cohen, who has been on my show a number of times, he's like this. He's one of my buddies I bring on, just a guy that just is constantly trying to optimize health, wellness, mindset, and all of it. He's a fellow Hoosier. So, so
I'm telling you,
Indiana repping, baby. So that's good.
That's right. The Hoosiers, there's something about us.
Yeah. Well, and I tell you what, one of my favorite of the Indiana's favorite sons is Larry Bird, Larry Legend.
Oh, Larry Legend.
That dude, the more I learn about him and his work ethic, one of my favorite stories I use all the time, and it was told by, he's the guy that's now the ambassador of NCAA basketball for Nike, legendary coach, and I'm just completely blanking on his name. I'll probably think about it halfway through the story. He was one of the Olympic coaches, and they were wrapping up practice, and Larry Bird asks, "Can I get a ride home later?" Because everybody's leaving. They're loading up on the bus, and this is the Olympics, right? And so he's not like, and he wants to stay and practice longer. I mean, the one arguably the best player there, and then was the first one in the gym the next day, and these stories about him. And then another one I always use is, apparently he was doing some commercial one time. I just used this here recently in a blog post or something. He was doing a commercial, and Larry Bird had to purposely miss a shot, and it took him something like 15 shots.
This is McDonald's commercial with Michael Jordan.
There you go. It took him like 15 shots to miss. He could.
Yeah.
It was easier for him to make a shot than to miss a shot. That's awesome. I just love it.
I tell a story a lot. That's a true story about Kobe. And Kobe, the Lakers would have high school gyms open wherever they went to play, because Kobe would go make shots when the bus got where the bus was going. So landing the plane on a bus to the hotel, they'd get Kobe a gym so he could go shoot. And Kobe would shoot. This was his religious practice, 3 times a day. And there's just something about these guys who work harder than anybody else. There's a reason they're as good as they are.
Yep.
It's not an accident.
No.
And that's Michael Jordan as well. He would outwork everybody. And he talks about this on a regular basis. I think this is why Michael Jordan was not a very good NBA player.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this is pretty easy. The stats are what the stats are, right? And Charlotte just is not a great team because he thinks everybody should work as hard as he worked. And they just don't. They don't, right? Chris Bosh tells the story of Kobe, where when they were on the Redeem team. Are you familiar with this story on the Redeem team and Chris Bosh? Oh, so I'll say it anyways, just for folks who maybe haven't heard it. Chris thought that he was going to beat the team down to practice and be the first one to show because he wanted to be a leader for the Redeem team. For those of you who don't know, in 2012, the Olympics, the American basketball team was coming off of an embarrassment in 2008. They didn't win gold. Greatest league in the history of basketball. The NBA produced players that got beat, I believe, was by Spain, going off of memory, but don't quote that piece. So Chris Bosh comes down to practice and he sees Kobe already has ice on his knees and sweat all over his body, realizing, oh, Kobe's already done a full practice. And I thought I was going to be the first one here for this practice.
Yeah.
This is what makes greatness. It's not an accident.
Exactly.
There's something about that. You build, and it's really a mindset. That's really what it is a reflection of. It
is. I was going to say, like you mentioned it earlier. Have you ever watched Tom Brady's combine tape? Or like there's a little compilation of Tom Brady that it shows like, and it takes a lot of clips from the combine.
It's 40-yard dash. It's hilarious.
He's like running as fast as the offensive lineman. I mean, it's terrible. He never could.
Maybe as fast.
Oh, it was horrible. And like from what I heard, I don't know if this is true or not, but suppose like the picture that they take of them with their shirt off, like he does not like that picture being shown because I mean he was rocking like a bad dad bod even back then.
Oh, it was a dad bod.
Oh, it was a total dad bod.
It wasn't TB12. It was not the form that you see today.
Oh, not at all. And, I remember I just did a deal. I posted something this week that Ed Sheeran, and I'm not a big Ed Sheeran fan or anything, but he played for the John Graham or whatever that British talk show is. he's playing a recording of when he was first starting out. And his point was, everyone thinks that everybody just has natural talent. They don't really have to work. He said, no, it's not true. And he plays this line where an old recording of him, and it is awful. He sounds terrible. And that's why the ones that become legend versus the ones that just we never hear about again, that work ethic, it absolutely is the difference, man. And it is, and one of the things that you talking about Jordan, The Last Dance, it was not fun to be his teammate. I mean, and because of what you're talking about, but Jordan even said, I will never fault someone who fails, but I will take issue if they don't try. And so his deal was, if he believed you were a teammate, that you were out there fighting as hard as he was, hey, Jordan's not going to jack with you. But man, those poor guys that just were not giving it, he was an ass and they hated playing with him. But I mean, he's Jordan. And then so bringing up another good movie, dude. Have you seen the new Nike movie about with Ben Affleck and
of course. Well, Shoe Dog is one of my favorite books of all time.
I've never read Shoe Dog. I need to read it.
Oh, great book. But the snippet of it about Jordan coming on, the movie captured it perfectly.
Really?
And it took the whole movie. Like it took 2 hours just to tell that story.
Yeah. Wow. And how beautiful is it that, and first of all, just in this era of going in, so anybody that hasn't seen it, in this era of going into movies where you just don't know, am I going to get preached to? I mean, what's going to happen? I mean, everybody kind of goes in with this kind of tension in their stomach. Dude, that is just an unbelievable American success story. I love, and here's the deal. The hero of the story, I suppose, is Matt Damon's character, the guy that's, kind of the old scout.
Sonny?
Yeah, Sonny. But then you've got
Sonny Vaccaro.
Jordan comes in at the end, and it really makes you understand in just such a short period of time, to your point, the greatness of Michael Jordan, that kid at the time, and his mom, dude, the force and the brilliance of his mom. I did not know that. I didn't know that she was the one that basically said, no, here's how we're going to do this, and change the game forever. And then what was it? I mean, he's making some just obscene amount still off Air Jordan.
The reason he's a billionaire. Yeah. His pro contract, I think the number is under 100 million, is what Michael Jordan in his career made under $100 million as a professional basketball player. And think about contracts that are going out today, where you have guys on 4-year deals right now, 150, 200. It's 250 million. You are getting some astronomical figures these days. In the 90s and the 80s, the contracts were not like this. It was a big deal when Magic made $1 million. Magic was the first player, I believe he was the first or second, to get, may have been Bird who was the first, but they got the first $1 million contracts in basketball.
Yeah. And
they were hated by teammates for getting this money. And just the evolution of the payments, but Jordan made it himself through the shoe contract, and thanks to Mama Jordan is really what it all came down to. And I really like what you're talking about. Like this is the spirit of the American dream.
Yep.
As well, right here. It's this. If you read Jordan's biography, it's a really interesting book, and it tells the story of his great grandparents came, for all intents and purposes, from indentured servitude, a generation before that, slavery, to, his parents are now closing a deal with a multinational corporation that's going to set him up to become the first billionaire athlete. Like, imagine if you could invest in that stock.
Right.
Oh, man. And this is the family who didn't come from anything. And, weren't giving the typical, like the varsity blues that were happening a couple of years ago, parents buying their kids' way into college. Right. This was all hard work, moxie, asking for the order, kind of, sales 101, business 101, go out there, grab it, ask for it, and run with it. And they really, I think embodied what the American dream is. And a lot of these kids coming up today through the league and through sports athletics, and they're now adopting business and getting ready to take on that next chapter and become business people. In and of itself, I think is just a wonderful evolution. You know, we've gone from broke, the classic story of athletes losing it all within 4 or 5 years, to now athletes creating generational wealth, creating businesses, making investments. And Jordan was really, in Magic and Larry, these guys set the roadmap that generations can now follow. And I'm a big believer that this American dream is still alive. I think there's a lot of negative naysayers out there. Oh, the American dream's dead. You can't do this. I think can't is a 4-letter word, Jason. And I know you embody this spirit. We won't say what the other 4-letter words are. I don't want to disrespect your audience, but dude, American dream is still alive and well. And watching these like athletes being one example of folks taking it and running with it is one of the more beautiful things.
I could not agree
that's
more.
out there today.
I could not agree more. I think that this is what's sad to me, Jesse, when I see these people that are so down in the mouth and the naysayers. It breaks my heart because, brother, there has never been a better time for the human experience than right now, what we're living in. It's kind of a double-edged sword. It's because things are so good. You've got guys like us. Okay, and look, not to pat both of us on the back, but I like to feel like I was not naturally gifted with a lot of the things that I would love to have had to been, to do whatever I have to. I feel like I have to work harder than the guy beside me to get to where I want to get to. But here's the cool thing. What I see is there are more tools available. There are more ways to learn to optimize health, mind, spirit, body, all of it than ever. And I'm like a kid in a candy store. And so it breaks my heart whenever I see these people that are just not going and getting it. There are more entrepreneurs now than there have ever been. There are more opportunities. I told my daughters, man, whenever they were finishing up undergrad, and I was like, girls, you got to understand, if you want to get out there and go take your corporate jobs, go do what you got to do, but never, ever, ever underestimate your ability to do your own thing. There's never been a better time. And so, okay, so here, that's a perfect segue too, because I know you're like me in this regard. So we watch guys like Tom Brady, Magic, Bird. Now, I get to see up close, but because he's from here, and we have a close circle of friends. Patrick Mahomes, I know how that guy works. We see that, and I know for me, I'll watch the great coaches. Nick Saban, my daughter graduated from Alabama. I was a fan before. I was a total T-shirt fan. I went ahead and dropped, $250,000 to send her there, so I can now be more of an official fan since I didn't get to go there. So,
hey,
I'm all in.
Paid for you've earned it.
Okay, good. And I watch guys like that, and I want to figure out ways to apply those principles in the business world and just my daily life. So I'm going to throw the ball back to you. I know you're the same way. What does that look like for you to say, look, I don't care what anybody says, the American dream, it's alive and well. And what tools I have, I'm going to use, but I'm going to enhance them and make them better. I'm going to be the Tom Brady of the business world and share it. And what are you doing in the business world, and how are you applying those principles to do that?
I have a very long and a very short answer to this, and I can give you both. I don't know what time you're working with here or what.
Go for it, brother. More the better. That's the beauty of a podcast, man. This is long.
Hey, dude. All right. Well, I have an inspiration, and then we'll talk about tools. My inspiration that I feed off of, and not a lot of guys can say this, or I don't know, maybe a lot of guys can, but my father-in-law. My father-in-law, my wife is from Zimbabwe, and my wife's entire family still lives there. And her parents were raised in a period that would be the equivalent to apartheid. They're a black family in a country that is controlled by a very small white minority. He was raised in abject poverty. Didn't have his first pair of shoes until he was 13 years old. he wasn't allowed to walk on a sidewalk until he was 16 years old, simply because he was Black. Hard stop. However, he is very, very, very intelligent. And he will, like you said earlier, he will outwork anybody. And through a series of fortunate events, he was able to get into a boarding school, and he was able to get an education. He tells me this whenever we get together, just because I love the story so much. And I can't wait for my kids to hear it, realizing this is their grandfather. He was the only Black kid in his classes. And the way he was able to get to university is he couldn't afford, so he was at this boarding school for high school, and he couldn't afford to go home during breaks. So he volunteered at an orphanage down the street, so he'd have room and board. And the orphanage needed a new roof. And so he went to the priest that ran the orphanage, and he's like, hey, what can we do to raise money to put a new roof on this thing? And oh, by the way, I should mention this. There's a civil war happening in his country at that time, and Rhodesia's becoming Zimbabwe. So there's a civil war happening. Talks to the priest. Hey, you know, what can we do to get a roof? He's like, you know what? I bet I could get a sponsorship. I know some people involved with Coca-Cola. So long story short, and it's already going to be too long, he ends up getting Coca-Cola to sponsor him and a white guy to run it's the equivalent of a marathon a day for 3 days in a row, from where the orphanage is to the capital of what is now Zimbabwe, and which is Harare. And they ran that over the course of 3 days, running through a war zone, mind you. And they made it. And at the end of the race, the priest walked up to both of them with an envelope, and it was a full ride scholarship anywhere in the British Commonwealth he wanted to go for university. So this guy, who didn't have his first pair of shoes until he was 13, was now able to go anywhere in the British Commonwealth he wanted to go for university. Well, he ends up getting on his way into the UK. Has no money besides the scholarship, and figures, oh, I can DJ to make money, because he would go to a bar. He saw that the DJ was making money, and he was like, oh, I can do this. So he ends up like learning how to become a DJ. His first job, this is actually a good story. His first job, he goes to the barkeep and he's like, hey, I want to DJ. And the guy's like, do you have experience? He's like, no, but I can do it. It's like, well, the guy says, I tell you what, if you can fill up a Tuesday night, you'll own Tuesday nights, because I can't get anybody in here on Tuesday nights. So he was buddies with a bunch of the rugby players. He bought a case of beer after rugby practice, got everyone over to his house. They start drinking. And he's like, oh, hey guys, I'm throwing a party at this bar. Come on. Fills the rugby team at the bar. All the girls follow, and he packs the bar. This is Herbie in a nutshell. And ends up getting back to Zimbabwe. The things change. Zimbabwe gets its independence. Herbie eventually goes on to chair 10 publicly traded corporations in the course of his life.
Wow.
The guy didn't have his first pair of shoes until he was 13. And having somebody like that in your life, that you like, whenever you think, man, odds are against me, you can't go to your father-in-law and be like, oh, you know what, man, the odds are just against me. It's not working. He's like, the odds are against you?
Yeah.
What do you mean the odds are against you? Let me tell you when the odds are against. And so having that in your back pocket, you kind of have a kick in the tuchus on a regular basis, especially now that I'm
marrying his granddaughter. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I keep that story in my back pocket whenever I start to feel like, man, the odds are working against you, or man, I don't know if I can, or man, I think I can't. But in terms of tools of achieving the American dream, I am a very, very lucky person, Jason, in the fact that for a living, I work with insurance agents. And I think the insurance business is one of many entrepreneurial endeavors that has a low barrier to entry, if this makes sense. I don't need Harvard MBA to become an insurance agent. I could be an immigrant that doesn't have a high school degree, let alone a college degree, barely speak the language, but have a ton of hustle, a ton of moxie, the ability to ask for the order, and the ability to learn. I didn't say I have to know how to do math or I have to know how to do science. I have to have the ability to learn and the open-mindedness to learn. And if you have those things, you can open up shop as an insurance agent. If you can pass a licensing exam, and they offer it in English, they offer it in Spanish, they offer it in Vietnamese, they offer it in Korean. You have options available to you. And then if you can work with a company like the company that I work with, and you have the ability to get appointed to insurance companies. So you have now tools, you have things that you have widgets. You have widgets that you can sell. And my job is to help these people achieve the American dream because they now have widgets that they can sell. And it is the dopest thing in the world, dude, because they are now out there building a business, and we give them the tools to sell. We train them what products are good to sell. We train them on how to cross sell. So now you're not just selling one widget, but you're selling multiple widgets to those consumers. And we give them all this access, all this training. And these are the tools by which we help people build the American dream. And it is alive and well, dude. What I found to be our most successful agents, and this kind of bums me out, but it is a lot of immigrants because they come here, they don't have a lot of options, and they're like, I'm going to do this. And they crush it. They demolish the dream in such a good way. And it's just such a blessing to be able to work with folks to help them do this. And I feel like I have a responsibility now to share with people, you can do this. Don't let your own internal barriers stop you, because that's all they are, is internal barriers. And yeah, the avenue's there, and a lot of people are coming here and showing that the avenue's there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And aren't going back to the whole immigrant discussion, if I'm not mistaken, it's something like a first generation immigrant in America is 4 times more likely to become a millionaire than someone that was born here. I mean, it's really insane because they come here. And again, I think that speaks to what we were talking about earlier about the American dream being alive and well. Okay, first of all, the boats are usually coming into America, not many going out, and the ones that are getting here, and they come, and like I love, like you mentioned, New York. Whenever you live there, and by the way, I've got a daughter. Oh, this is cool. Sidebar, we'll put a pin in it. So, Abby, my youngest daughter, she's working for a wealth management firm on Fifth Avenue. Literally, she can throw a rock from her building and hit Trump Tower. She sends us a text last night saying, "Hey, do you guys know who Isabella Rossellini is?" And I'm like, "Well, of course I know. That was the Lancome lady." I mean, she was like, "Isabella, are you kidding me? It's Ingrid Bergman's daughter." She said, "Well, she's one of our clients and she's coming in today." I had no idea who she was, but I get to meet her tomorrow. I'm like, "Wow, that's awesome." So anyway.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. But so we're in New York a lot, not because we were there before. And that's one of the reasons why she wanted to work in New York, because we hang out in New York quite a bit. And when you talk to some of the cab drivers and the bodega owners and stuff like that, and you can hear that true immigrant story of, we came here and we couldn't believe what we were able to do. We came here and we was like, "Are you kidding me? You're really going to let me make this kind of money? This opportunity." And that's what they love. You're saying that if I do this, that's cool. I can make as much money as I want if I'm willing to work. And it's really, and I that's why I'm so glad one of my business partners and dear friends in life, Gus Vickery, he's on here every Friday on Authentic Health Fridays. And he says, he's always saying, never curse the days of small beginnings. He said, never curse the days of small beginnings. And, as someone I was the first member of my family to go to college. Now, granted, I had a great life. I don't come from any form of poverty, but here's what I did have the cool experience of. So my mom and dad divorced. I went literally from the good side of the tracks one week to the other side of the tracks the next. So my mom, who came from nothing, and when she and my dad divorced, I mean, over there, dude, I was hanging out with the kids who were getting the free lunches, and they were my buddies. I knew no different. And then the other half, I'd go to with the other half, the kids that had all the normal things that they would want. And so I got a picture into that. And so I was the same way to like a little bit of a degree whenever I was in college. It's like, oh my God, you're kidding me. I will do anything to stay on campus. I will do anything to work here, do whatever I have to do to stay. I'm not going home. And that's how these, and so you take that, I think, to a level 11. And that's what you see with these folks that come into America, and they've got, like, your father-in-law. I would love to sit down with him and pick his brain about
you'd love it.
Things. Oh, and
we'll make it happen. We'll make it happen.
Please. And dude, maybe we need to get him on the show. I would love to hear that. But then, it's like, man, I think that's so encouraging, Jesse. It's one of the things I loved about real estate. You know, my first real business was buying a real estate company. Same thing. It was because low barrier to entry, didn't take me a ton of money to get in. I didn't have to, I had my undergrad degree from Stephen F. Austin State University. And I was like, I can do that. And then one of my favorite stories, dude, Sheila Turner, who's now Sheila Cooper. She came to, it was so funny, man. She comes to interview with me, and she's a paralegal at the time. And she's telling me she's getting her real estate license. And she said, whenever I get it, I would like to come work here. And I was like, absolutely. You've got a place here. Just keep me posted, and we'll kind of, we'll be prepared whenever that day comes. Well, then she calls me in tears one day. The attorney that she's working for finds out she's getting her real estate license and fires her. Now, Sheila's still doing her job just fine, but the attorney fires her just because she's like, well, if that's what you're going to do one day, you're out. I said, no problem. I said, come over. We'll get you started. I gave her some of my house listings because I didn't want to be a competing broker. So I would always, if I had listings, so I gave her, dude, that lasted for 90 days. And then Sheila never looked back. Now, this is a girl that grew up as a sibling of 6 in a single wide trailer in Eustis, Texas, with no formal education. I think she'd gone to maybe TJC to become a paralegal. And and to watch her just take the bull by the horns and take the opportunity before her and just out hustle, outwork, and just seize the opportunity. It was so awesome. And so I get it, man. When you see that happen, it's just something magical. And to the listener out there, it's available. So that puts now you're kind of the Bobby Knight over at Agility, which is where you are, I know. And
I don't know if I'd say the Bobby Knight, but
I mean, you're much kinder.
One of the people.
You don't throw chairs at the agents or anything like that. But like, so what are some of the things that you're doing to, like, we know those, I love hearing, how these athletes prepared. I know you and I, the first time we met, we kind of geeked out immediately on, biohacking and all this. So what are you doing to leverage your assets to stay physically, mentally? I love getting the behind the scenes, and go as deep as you want, dude. If you want to talk about your morning routine, whatever, those are fun. I love hearing that.
I think something that gets lost with people. Now, we are lucky that we don't work in a factory, right? And I think about my brother who, he was a prison guard at one time, working 12 hours a day at the prison. We get a little bit more flexibility.
Yep.
But I blocked out a period of time to exercise at least 3 days a week, if not 4 or 5, right? I try to work out 5 days a week, and I'm pretty religious about it. Blocked in my calendar. If you have the ability to control your calendar at home, whatever it is, no boss is going to care if you are going to work out for an hour. Go work out, go exercise, whether that exercise is taking a walk, whether that exercise is going and doing Tabata, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, 30 seconds on, 15, whatever it is, go lift weights. You have to do something to take care of yourself. And so in my calendar, I literally block out busy periods. Not busy periods, me getting some exercise in. My supplement routine is incredibly simple. It's incredibly simple. I don't know if these guys sponsor you or not, but they should if they don't. Athletic Greens.
Love it.
Athletic Greens on a daily basis. Take 5 milligrams of creatine. And if I need to, I'll take Alpha Brain by on it.
Yep.
Very, very simple, but I also think incredibly effective, right? That's, you don't need a lot, in my opinion. I think you have a couple of extras that I should maybe consider. What do you think? Knowing that I have this minimalist approach to my supplement intake, what am I missing, or what's one or two key supplements you think I should look at or think about taking, knowing what I take now?
Well, first of all, you're getting you're getting the one that I tell if people say, all right, Jason, I only want to take one thing now. And this is where I differ from my buddy, Gus Vickery, who's a physician. Not that I disagree with Gus. It's just, this has always been my take, but the 5 grams of creatine, money. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's what I tell everybody for cognitive health, for recovery, for longevity. The 5 grams of creatine. I'm going to do my daily dose of Athletic Greens, and I make a green monster shake every single day. So I'm with you on that. I want to get back to the Alpha Brain by Onnit, because I've never taken it. I know all about it from Aubrey Marcus and Logan, and I've listened. I've never taken it. I've never taken any nootropics, which I guess that's considered a nootropic, but
it is.
And so I want to talk to you about that and kind of get your take on it. I would say, man, dude, you're fine. I also, though, for me, I would consider, again, this is, folks, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not making a recommendation, but some niacin at night to stay really well oxidized. Also, I would L-glutamine. I think that would be good. Things that really NAC, things that encourage blood flow, that encourage mitochondria health. L-carnitine. I just did a quick little in between episode on why I take L-carnitine, and essentially that was the reason why is to strengthen my mitochondria and to increase. And then like glutathione, that's one. God, how could I miss that? So that's another one, Jesse. I would say everyone listening, check it out. And you have to be the one that I take is from Auro, AURO Health, that was developed by okay, so my Nayan Patel, who created Auro Health is his company. I'm always afraid I'm going to mispronounce it. He's the one who created the ability to do topical application for glutathione. Glutathione, you can't take it orally. So and it's on the market orally, but it's not going to metabolize in your body. You're just going to pee it out. So it has to be topically given. But glutathione is your body's master antioxidant. So as we get older, our bodies are going to naturally produce less. And so therefore you want to strengthen that. And just as far as kind of that overall staying healthy and recovering quicker, I think that's a big one. If you're like you and I, and you're a little younger than I am, but as we get older and our bodies start to produce less testosterone, DHEA is a really good testosterone supporter. And also, and just so the listener knows, I'm going to send this to you. Gus and I, and it's his work. All I did was make it pretty. We created an entire body composition handbook where it has his his basic supplement stacks that he's put together. And that's just kind of what I go on. So I'll send you that whole list, but those are the ones. And then I take the omega-3s and that sort of thing. I don't think I'm missing anything. I'll take a B12 complex, which, by the way, okay, here's another thing too. I mentioned niacin. If you're going to start taking niacin at night, make sure that you get the flush free. Otherwise, you're going to wake up and feel like you got a sunburn in the middle of the night. It is weird.
That makes sense.
I didn't know that. And I was doing a double whammy, dude. I didn't realize it, but I was taking a B12 complex at night plus niacin. And I would wake up and literally it felt like my body was burning. I didn't know what was going on. And Gus said, well, yeah, here's what you're doing, dude. And even
it's like drinking 3 Red Bulls.
Yeah, it's crazy. Those are some things. But now let's get back to the Alpha Brain. Talk to me about what is it? How has it helped you?
Nootropics in general, I've messed around with quite a few. And I found that Alpha Brain for me gives the most predictable result. There's no shakiness to it. It's not a caffeinated feeling. There's no caffeine added to it. I don't know. I don't know all the ingredients that go into it, but it does help me get into zone a little bit easier than I naturally would. I drink coffee. It's whatever, right? But outside of coffee, I don't have a lot of stimulants in my life to try to get me going. And I've noticed on days where I want to be in the zone and work hard. So this period of the year for me professionally right now, there's just a lot going on with open enrollment in the healthcare world. So I need to be on a regular basis. I cycle in and out of nootropics. I don't want to become dependent upon them. So if I find myself that I've gone 2 or 3 weeks regularly taking them, I'll purposely put them away for a month. I don't know if there's any, this could all be mental. My opinion on anything that is placebo or in your head, if it's in your head, it works. Yeah. That's all I care about. Right. And, but for me, putting them away, it's the same thing with creatine. I cycle in and out of creatine because I don't want my body to become dependent upon it. The only thing I take without cycling is athletic greens, just because I know my body needs that input. I've messed around a little bit. You talked about DHEA. I cycle in and out from time to time. It's probably been a year or two since which is why I didn't even think to bring it up. It's been a year or two since I've taken anything to mess with my testosterone. I've been really lucky, at least I feel lately, through my exercise routines and dietary habits. And I feel that normal, like I don't need that extra pick me up or that extra kabang. But there'll be a period of like 6 months from time to time where I'll take DHEA or testosterone, stuff to help out with my leveling of testosterone. Sure. I think another part of it is like, I'll drink wine from time to time and margaritas from time to time. I enjoy a good time, but, just as of like this last year, I haven't been putting them back as much, consciously. So that I think that also has a lot to do with not, I know when you drink alcohol, it messes with your testosterone levels. So I think me just, a glass of wine for me, it happens once a month now instead of like a couple times a week. I think that's probably the easiest way to put it. So yeah, big believer in nootropics and just their ability to help put you in the zone and help get you where you want to get. And what feels to me, same shot on, I'm not a doctor. I sell health insurance through other people. That's the closest I come to access to care. But I'm a big believer. We have these tools at our resources. We should use them, right? And you have people who will go out and buy a case of beer, crush that in a couple of days and do that on a regular basis. Why would I not spend that money on something that's going to make me feel good on a regular basis versus like a Band-Aid for pain? If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. That's the reason why I gave up drinking altogether, just because I wanted my mind as lucid as possible. I wanted to really, go all in on longevity. And by that meaning, I don't want to just live as long as I can. I want to live as healthy as I can for as long as I can. Kind of that. I want to really, really reduce those marginal years that, Peter Attia has a great video out where he shows where like you go so long and like it's extending that below that 50% activity threshold. Like once you drop below quality of life at 50%, right now in America, we're really good at if you get below the 50% activity mark or life enjoyment, we can keep you in that for a long, long time. Well, that just kind of sucks. So because like the perfect scenario is you go, and then boom, you drop dead, as opposed to you go below the 50% and then you just have this long tail end of like ending up in a home or whatever. And so that really I got really dialed in on that. And that's where all of this kind of came from with it becoming the closest thing I have to a hobby. One of the things I didn't mention was berberine. I really do. I will take berberine. Now, a lot of people will take it. It's been said before, it's like the poor man's Ozempic. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I take it for blood sugar management. I've learned that as we get older, I want to make sure that I maintain really, really heightened insulin sensitivity. I learned a little bit more about insulin and blood sugar than the average person, just because Abby, that I was mentioning, that works in New York, she was diagnosed a number of years ago with type 1 diabetes. And so you learn everything you want to know. Yeah, it's a brutal disease. And so, so berberine is one of those that is a part of my staple protocols.
Yeah.
And then I think that's it. Now, what is something, because I've got some of these, it's kind of funny looking back on my journals and stuff. What's something that you used to do religiously that you no longer do, either because it just kind of ran its course or you changed your opinion? You got anything like that?
Something I used for fitness, for life?
Anything, maybe like just a habit that you thought was really you had to do to make you better. And here's why I'm asking this question. Do you follow Tim Ferriss at all?
Of course.
Okay. Most of the guys in our
OG.
Yeah. He is the OG biohacker, human guinea pig. He's going through a phase right now where he's backing off a lot of the stuff that he wants to. It's kind of what I love about Tim. It's like, he'll go all in on something and give you all the reasons for it, and then decide, you know what? It's no longer adding quality to my life, so I'm backing up. And one of those things, and Mitchell Cohen, who's also a fellow Tim Ferriss consumer that I mentioned earlier, was on the podcast from IU. He's going through a phase where he's like, I'm going to stop trying to over optimize my life. And that's kind of, I want to get there. It's hard for me. It's really hard because, look, I'm not saying everybody has to do it, but for me, it just kind of, it's fun. It gives me purpose. If it were drudgery, I might think differently, but I like finding those things. So Tim's going through a phase now where he's kind of backing off some of those. I was wondering if you had any of those things that like once were like a staple of who you were, whether it's when you ate, what you ate, how you exercise, something you read, that you just like, yeah, I don't do that anymore, and my life hasn't changed that much.
You want to know that this is going to be this is the truth about Jesse. I didn't become who I am today, or I didn't even start to think about life the way I think about life today until probably my early 30s. I'm 43 now, for reference.
Okay. So, all right, that's good.
This is, I partied a lot back in my day.
Okay.
I had a huge sense of entitlement, a huge ego. I thought everything deserves to be mine. I thought I went to the restroom and roses came out, right? And what hit me was a couple of major failures in life. So I started my career as a teacher. And if you ever saw the movie Training Day, that's
of course.
That's the neighborhood my kids came from.
Oh, wow.
And so loved the kids. They were great. But I wanted to become a businessman, having no idea what a businessman was. So I left teaching and became a financial advisor. I won't say the firm that took the risk on hiring me, but jumped around a couple of financial services jobs. 2008, 2009 comes. I get let go from a job and my ego just got demolished and crushed. I thought I was going to be a golden boy in business because I was the best and the coolest and the smartest. Man, I was probably drinking like bottle of wine a night. Like, I'm not joking. It just like not taking care of my body, jumping between jobs, unemployed for a while. Just my car got repossessed. It was, I had my ego checked pretty hard. Right. And then somehow, some way I had this insurance license, started a company with a buddy, and we experienced a little bit of success in that company. In 2016, I sold my interest in that company and was helping a buddy build a call center. And this is when, again, I thought I was like a golden boy. I was a master of business, man. Like I got this insurance thing figured out. We could not get this call center off the ground. And I was just like, what the hell is going on? I thought I had this thing figured out. I've experienced success. I'm a 6-figure earner and I earned it myself because it's my business. I went and knocked on doors physically to get those lives, and then ended up in the corporate world for a little bit and went from being like the CEO and president of a company to being a sales executive at a health insurance company. And it was after the series of failures, then some success in there in between, but the failure really taught me like, dude, you really know nothing and you need to open up to the wisdom of other people. So it's probably 2011, 2012, I started listening to podcasts very regularly. Tim Ferriss shows, You Speak of Him. That was one of the first ones I jumped into. I actually have it right over here. I read Awaken the Giant Within. It's still one of the books that I keep like right there. Tony, dude. You could be a death metal singer if you wanted to. But, you talk about, what did I used to do that I don't today? I think I stripped a lot of the ego away. And stripped a lot of bad behaviors away to, at this point in my life, if I don't exercise, I feel wrong. 15 years ago, I had to force the funk because I was smoking cigarettes and drinking a bottle of wine a night and just not taking care of myself, man. So, and my ego was here. And, I think at the top of the show, you heard me say ego's no amigo. I've really embraced that. So the reason I had trouble, immediately coming to like, hey, what did you used to do that you don't do now? I can tell you what I believed then that I don't believe now. And the answer to that would be, it's not roses that come out of me when I go to the bathroom. I have had my ego checked multiple times through a series of failures. And by finally stepping back and realizing, one, that failure is an amazing teacher. Two, I'm going to get so much more out of life when I provide value to others versus trying to extract value for myself. And three, when I realize that I get some of the most joy in my life outside of my kids and my family, the most joy I get is making other people smile and helping other people succeed. Those three things are the things that I've instituted and learned from and have made me the person I am today, which I think is an exponentially different person than you would have been speaking to 15 years ago.
And with that, folks, that's the Jason Wright Show, dude. You can just drop the mic right there. That's gold. I mean, seriously, Jason, there's so much gold there, and I can relate to it so well. And that is not where I was going. That's a cool thing. I think that was perfect, because so much of like, I get the whole ego thing. If you were to ask me, looking back on your life, we always have that silly thing where people say, if you could tell your 20-year-old self one thing, what would it be? Right. I would say, you're not nearly as special as everyone has made you to believe you are. And two, you better fight your ego first. I mean, like Ryan Holiday says, the ego is the enemy.
Ego's the enemy.
That book is
great book.
Because here's what ego does. And it sounds like you and I were very similar. So get this. And I've got a book over here. It's kind of funny. The first book I ever wrote, Push Play, Taking Your Life Off Pause. And it's about my escape from corporate America into entrepreneurship. And now, well, it goes into the story of whenever I kind of went through my transition moment. First of all, I'm sitting in my office one day. I just lost a congressional race. Okay. I ran for Congress and I'd sold a business, sold it too soon. My marriage had ended. I divorced after 17 years, and had two daughters that were my life. And I sat in my office by myself one day and just felt like the biggest loser. Felt like my life was just like what, and on paper, I had done all these cool things. I had started businesses, sold businesses, been on city council, all these things that from to the outside looked great. And yet inwardly felt like the biggest loser, because what I realized is exactly the same thing, Jesse. All those things I had done were to feed my ego. It was to look successful as opposed to just putting my head down and figuring out what real success was, what real fulfillment was, which you will always realize if you really want to know how to be happy and full of joy. You mentioned it, man. Don't focus inward. Let those eyes turn outward and figure out how you can be of value and encouragement to others. And that's when that actually during that time, whenever I was in that valley, man, I feel like I was the biggest loser, and finally realizing, dude, quit trying to look like quit trying to play up to this image that you've created and reinforced, and just accept who you are and just be. And I'm sitting in my office one day and I pick up that book, which is very much geared towards encouraging people to take the leap, not to go into self-employment or being an entrepreneur necessarily. That was my story. But at the time it was like, hey, I don't care who you are or what you're doing. Create a blueprint for your life. Kind of like what Tony talks about. If your life blueprint doesn't match where you want to be, change the blueprint. Well, here's the deal.
The blueprint.
As I opened that book in my office, my own book, first two things occurred to me. One, what a jackass. Who did I think I was at 35 to even write that book? What an arrogant jackass. Folks, still a good book. Buy it by the dozen and give it away for Christmas. It goes really nicely next to a commode.
Great corporate gift.
Great corporate gift. But dude, first of all, I was like, what? I would read through, and the more I read it, the older I get, the more I read and realize, dude, that ego was coming in hot. But then secondly, I felt myself kicking my own self through my book in the rear to like, hey, you stop, just be real with yourself and get things in order. And so it was then that I called my editor up. I said, hey, I want to do an updated version of the book. I want to start a podcast, help build an audience for it. And then slowly started gaining back. And then it was, not long after that at all, I met Jimlyn, this beautiful girl that had never been married. I was never getting married again. I was like, no way. My Rylan and her Abby, they're the only women in my life. I will never marry again. I was single for 5 years. And all of a sudden, by a chance introduction from a friend, Jimlyn agrees to go to coffee with this old dude with 2 kids who thought he was damaged goods. He's in his 40s. She's like, at the time, 34 and beautiful and single, never married and successful. Like, why would she ever look at me? And just all of a sudden, whenever I just decided, hey, here's who I am. I don't care what you think. And dude, it's the reason, there's so many things that I used to do throughout my life that were all just overcoming imposter syndrome, overcoming that fixed mindset. And so I get it, brother. I get it. And that's why, Beth Moore, Christian author, she used to say so many people walk through life in the witness protection program. And it's true. And then if you want to get all scientific about it, it's what Carl Jung always talked about. The shadow self. We all walk around through this world with a mask. When you can take that mask off and just be real with yourself, dude, life's so sweet. So that was cool, man. You went down an awesome road.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I do have to get back to my day job, though.
Well, I think we both probably should. And and so I've got to head over to Nacogdoches, like right now if we hang up. And let's do this again, dude. This was a lot.
I would love that. Thank you, first of all, for having me, Jason. Love your content. It's done with the intent that I can get behind. So thank you so much, sir, for doing what you do. And thank you for having me on.
You got it, brother. All right, folks. Thanks for listening to the Jason Wright Show. He's Jesse. I'm Jason. Keep improving always and always. We're out. Well, that does it for this episode of the Jason Wright Show. Thank you so much for listening. This has been a Texas Titan Media production. Fourth Wall did the music. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Please consider going out to jasonwrightnow.com and signing up for the Vitruvian letter. Also, please go out to iTunes. It takes like 30 seconds to just leave us a 5-star rating. It does wonders for the podcast. I would be so grateful. And with that, until we meet again, go crush it and endeavor to improve always in all ways. I'm out.